Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, hello, bonjour, comment ça va, and so on and so on and so on. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on Soul Empowerment. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach. Today, as always, we are going to try and help you liberate your soul from the tyranny of your reactive mind. That's really what we're all about here. And today, we're going to have a really amazing topic. We're going to be talking about the power of love. The title of this episode 41, by the way, is What Would Love Do Now? So I would like to just, first of all, begin by introducing all of the wonderful panelists that are here today. And I'm going to go around in the order that I see you on the screen. So I'm going to start with you, Scott. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about who you are, why you are here, and where you live, and anything else you think is relevant.
Scott Holmes, Boston, Mass, up in the great northeast of the U.S. Intuitive, energetic healer, whatever that means to anybody and anything that comes down the line. And basically, it's healing through the power of energy, through the power of coaching, through the power of intention, meditation, however and whatever works for you. And I get the pleasure of sitting with these three extraordinary people.
I am so glad that we can be a source of pleasure for you, Scott, because that's really what we're all about here, isn't it?
It is.
Some people may take exception to that statement, but let's just enjoy it for what it is. And next up, thank you for sharing about what you do and so forth. And I'm grateful to have you here. So next on my list is Gail. Gail, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us more about who you are, where you are, and what you are all about.
Hello, everyone. Gail Nowak and Scott. How am I just learning now that you're in Boston? I'm just a quick drive up to the North Shore from you. So I think maybe we need to meet in person. I had no idea. You're nice. Right in my neighborhood. Yeah, beautiful. I live in Massachusetts as well on the North Shore. I love guiding New Earth leaders and entrepreneurs through transformation from really making peace with their survival patterns, their coping mechanisms, their default energy, and moving into a more empowered energy in order to create a world full of happy, loving souls. And I'm excited for today's topic.
Yes, well, awesome, Gail. And I'm glad you found a new friend to connect with in your neighborhood. I'd like to have a few friends living with me here in Meridian, Idaho. That would be awesome. But it is what it is right now. And so thank you for being here. And of course, last but by no means least, Sarah, please tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you're all about.
Sarah Jane, but you may call me Sarah. And I'm in the UK. I'm on the south coast in a place called Bournemouth. So it's not far from Southampton, from where the Titanic sailed on her first and only voyage. And I work with energy as well. I work with Reiki. I also teach it. I work with sound, with the use of the voice, so toning. And I find that that's amazing. It's a technique that I believe I've been guided to call vocal Reiki. And because it doesn't just involve the toning, it does involve a little bit of talking, which I'm very good at. And I work with people's name. I work with the inner child, and I help people to heal the hurt, the pain, and the trauma of their younger years, helping them to reconnect. And it's very important to me. I can really look at people when they walk in, and I can see that lightness in energy when they leave. And it's beautiful to be able to see that. And I love doing that. And I may not be in Idaho now, but I have visited Idaho. I have actually been to Boise. So it's a beautiful, beautiful state.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for sharing, Sarah. Yeah, I should just point out I've had some experience with Sarah's vocal Reiki work. It's pretty intense and it's quite beautiful. If you haven't already connected with her, I recommend that you do that. Um, so here we are. We've been doing these episodes for over 3 years now, and so now we're on entering into our fourth year of doing these episodes, and I'm really excited because today we're going to be talking about love, about the power of love, and it's something that we talk about almost every episode, but maybe we don't call it out the way we're going to be calling it out today. And the topic title came from something that I learned from Neil Donald Walsh in his book Conversations with God. And I can't remember which volume it was in, but I do remember at one point during his book he asked the question, what would love do now? And he invited people to take that on as a personal mantra, as a way of just saying, in any choice you make, you can ask yourself, what would love do now? And it was a really powerful experience for me, and something that I hadn't really thought about before. And so as we were talking during our planning session, I happened to mention that, and everybody seemed to resonate with that title. And so that's where we are. And I think I'm going to start off by going right to Gail, because she helped a lot with the idea of transforming fear to love and all this kind of stuff. So Gail, why don't you share a little bit about that and how this topic title kind of touched you and what it means for you. And then we'll just kind of go around the circle, or whatever we call this.
Thank you, David. Yeah. One of the things that I love about being a part of this experience and on this panel is we have these planning meetings, and then we go about our individual lives. And I feel like, I don't know if this is true for everybody on the panel, but I know for me, something comes up and gives me the opportunity to, yes, God saying, yeah, gives me the opportunity to practice what we're going to be sharing on the panel. And this whole concept of love and what is love and what does that really look like, and has definitely been a part of my personal healing journey over the last, probably over my lifetime, right? And in particularly, really up close and personal over the last few years. Sarah talked about inner child work, and I've certainly done a fair share of that, and really working on childhood wounding and trauma. And that's all from a place of number one, learning like what is real love, what is divine love, what is unconditional love, what is loving, what is being loved, what is loving yourself. So this has been a huge theme in my life, and I love this question. I haven't read that book, but I've heard the concept of asking yourself, particularly when you're making a difficult decision, or you're having a certain circumstance, or you're coming up with conflict in relationships, to really take a step back, take a breath, and check in with yourself. What would love do now? And for me, there's multiple prongs to that. What would love do now, in the sense of what would feel loving and supportive to myself, and what would be loving and supportive for the greater good, the group, or whatever the situation or the people involved is. And really being honest and willing to move out of that reactionary fear, right? Or the people pleasing, or trying to control outcomes, and really get grounded and centered in, okay, if I am love, and we are all love, right? We live on a planet of love. I know sometimes it's hard to remember, given everything that's going on in the world, right? And it's not about denying that or ignoring that. And we are love. This planet vibrates at a frequency of love. We are part of the divine cosmos, which is loving. And I really believe that. I believe that we live in a loving universe. And so from that belief, to sit back and say, okay, I see my fear, or I see my anger or my grief, and what would love do? How would love approach this decision or this situation or this relationship? So that's really how it was speaking to me as we were going through our planning meeting.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Scott, I know that when you were introducing yourself, you happened to mention the word pleasure. And I know that very often, we human beings tend to kind of try and choose between pain or avoiding pain and acquiring pleasure or moving
Wow.
towards pleasure. And I don't know about you, but I have my own thoughts about that. But I'd like to hear how you think about this pleasure pain principle. How does it relate in your life, and how does it challenge you perhaps to spend more time in the place of love?
It took me quite a while to differentiate between pleasure, joy, love, especially as a teenage boy. Um, you get all those mixed emotions and understanding, and you have this body that gets in the way of everything. And then as you get married, the joy was that love that you found, that new love. We all experience, hopefully, at some point in our life, that kind of young love, right? Where rainbows, unicorns, everything is just floating around and nothing could go wrong. And I had my rose colored glasses on, and no matter what, I thought, all right, this is it. This is the pinnacle of everything that I was 20 years old. I was in love. I was getting married. And by the time I was 25, had 3 kids, 3 jobs, I forgot all about that. And it came down to pain, pleasure. And when you're going through that, for me anyway, you don't distinguish. You take pleasure in the small things because life just kind of takes over. As I've gotten older, and David, you've alluded to this in the elder statesman, that we look at life, love, and all of that so differently, where it's not just survival. Now it is growth, and we're able to expand on that. And I spoke with a couple of people this week. Gail, you alluded to. We take these topics, and I talked to people, and they said, "What would love do?" And they went, "Oh, wait a minute, that's pretty deep. Wait a minute." A lot of people align that with what would Jesus do? That saying, WWJD. But what would love do? And I think it's fairly similar to what would Jesus do, in that changes your whole perspective. You don't live life just simply for pleasure. I've known people who did that, and they ended up destroyed on the other end of it because it just this big spiral. It was all pleasure, and there was no grounding. There was no, to their life. And now I get pleasure out of the joy of connecting with people, of being able to give of myself and be able to help other people. So the whole definition, when you look through that prism of love and how you define it, really changes everything. It changes how you relate to everybody around you. It changes how you relate to your life, how you see your life, your perspective, whether you're happy with your life, and gratitude. It comes along with those different levels, and gratitude is one of those levels to get to love. So yeah, it changed my perspective entirely about my life, um, how I lived my life, forgiving myself, enabling myself to really appreciate and accept and allow that I am human. I did the best I could with what I had at the time, and that now that I'm in full understanding, or a fuller understanding, I don't know if we're full, that you deal with people in a much more compassionate nature. And for me, that's what happens. And love is kind of that filter to allow compassion to come through. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. Uh, I was just going to say that in my perspective, and I don't know how other people feel about this, the pain and pleasure dichotomy seems to be something of the ego mind to me. Uh, and I think you alluded to this, although you didn't say it specifically. When we're in the ego mind, we're in the mind space, then we're seeking to gratify ourselves. We're seeking to make ourselves look better than we really are. We're seeking to um, perhaps make other people seem smaller so that we can feel bigger. We get into that competitive state, and that's kind of the way the ego mind works. But when we bring our focus away from our heads and our ego minds and down, down, down into our hearts and our souls, our whole perspective shifts. And I think this is where you are talking about joy. This when I get down into my heart and my soul, I can experience joy more fully. And I also believe that from a spiritual perspective, uh, there is neither pain nor pleasure. There is just beautiful contentment, and meditative serenity, and all that beautiful stuff that we talk about, and many of us have a hard time experiencing physically. So I think part of what our objective is here today is to help people find that path away from this, chitter chatter up here in the ego mind that's always trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure, and move more down into that place of authentic joy and love. Sarah, you do a lot of work, you said, with people who, they're struggling one way or another, and you use the concept of sound, and in particular vocal sound. Uh-oh, we seem to have lost Sarah's camera. Are you still there, Sarah?
Yeah, for some reason, my computer decided to go into shutdown mode.
Okay, well, you're
So
still here. That's the main thing.
exactly.
And were you hearing what I was saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you share a little bit about that, and how sound can help us get away from this, pleasure, pain, uh, conflict, and down into the serenity of the soul.
I'd like to actually go back to the people pleasing thing before I come into that, if I may, because I spent so many years as a people pleaser. And I think that was very much because of insecurity. And when I heard people say, I know myself, I like myself, I love myself, I hadn't got a clue what they meant. It was alien speak to me because I could not relate to that in any way, shape, or form. Sort of. And so it's where I suppose it was about my healing journey that has brought me to do what I do today. And when you are in that space, you have no idea about what would love do now, because you do actually care about others, or do you? Are you just in that place of, I really want, and I'm using that word very, very deliberately, I want people to like me, to love me, to acknowledge me, all the stuff that we should be doing for ourselves. And when you are in that place, it can be very difficult to listen to a conversation like ours. And I really hope that there are people that, regardless of where they are on their journey, will listen to these programs. And so I think that's why my thing is sharing that, I've certainly been in that place. A lot of us have been in that place of negativity about ourselves, which makes it very difficult to do the what would love do now thing. It really does. Because for me, the answer to that is love would start by loving yourself, which when you're feeling that negative is not easy to do. It really isn't. And one of the things that I have found with my work, with working with the sound, and sound is amazing in all its forms. Think about the music you listen to and the different ways the different music helps you to feel. If you wish to be energetic, you'll play something energetic that you feel you can really move to, whether it's not, doesn't have to be dancing, it could be just doing your housework, sort of, but it gives you an energy. And then there's that music that you like to listen to when you're trying to relax and to unwind. But think about the sounds that surround you. If you live close to a busy road, you can learn to switch it off. But when suddenly somebody goes past too fast to make an heck of a noise, it really impinges on your senses. And so sound can hurt and sound can heal. It's the way that I tend to put it. Because sound can be extremely disruptive, not just to our sense of hearing, but to our whole body.
Right.
When I do just a tone, I know it sounds strange for the terminology, but I've been likened to a Tibetan singing bowl. People who turn around and said, I've had to open my eyes because I couldn't believe the sound I was hearing was coming from a human being. And it's lovely when that happens. It's because the energy of that sound has really touched them. But the most powerful aspect, and do you know what? You don't have to be able to do it the way I do it. But the most powerful thing I believe anybody can do for themselves, start by speaking it, your name. For me, especially the name your mother called you as a child. Now that, for some people, will be very difficult. I get that. I had a situation with, when I was giving a talk towards the end of last year, and it was a small group, so I actually toned everybody's name for them very briefly, but I toned everyone's name for them. And one of the ladies, when I got to her, she said, well, actually, I was adopted. She said, but I do know the name my birth mother gave me, but then this is the name that my adoptive mother called me. And so I agreed to do both. And seriously, her name that her adoptive mother called her, she felt that energy. But the floodgates opened when I toned the name her birth mother gave her. Because that felt like a rejection, but suddenly she felt the love around that name. And it made a massive difference. I was literally only talking to somebody a couple of days ago about the connection. Isn't it wonderful when you can have a conversation like we're having and we can be open with that conversation we're talking? We don't have to think, oh, can I say this? And I said to her, would you like to experience? And her answer was yes. And I said, okay, what did your mother call you as a child? And she said, well, actually, and I can't remember what the name was. She's Filipino, but she was born in South Africa and whatever. Anyway, and so she told me the name her mother had called her was a nickname. And then what else her mother had also called her at times. And so I did both for her. But the one that amazingly touched her more was the nickname. And she hadn't expected that. It really did. So our name is majorly important. And even if you can't find, some people would say, oh, when you do the people's name, you're singing it. It's still toning to me. I feel I channel that energy. But that, to me, is about acknowledging yourself, honoring yourself, loving yourself. And when we can start from that place of love for ourselves, I think we can more easily answer the question, what would love do now?
Right. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And I think just to tie back to what Gail was saying, we are love. So interestingly, if we love ourselves, we are loving love. How many people have thought of that before? And what does it mean to love love? That's an interesting question. Perhaps something for another day. But Scott, I noticed that you were kind of responding or reacting to what Sarah was saying. Did you have something you want to add to that?
I was just thinking, my mom always called me Scotty, and I had not heard that in so long, and it was reverberating, and I heard her voice in my head. And it just brought a smile to me. I lost my mom a year and a half ago, and it had not thought of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Gail, where are you with all of this conversation?
I want to speak to what Sarah was saying about loving yourself first. It's a statement, it's an idea, it's a concept that I feel we hear a lot in spiritual circles and healing circles. And I remember hearing that for the first time and immediately thinking, oh, I love myself. And thinking that everything's great, everything's fine, right? Very much up here. And, on some level, it's true. I was loving myself. And then I remember hearing that phrase again and getting really irritated about it, feeling really like, okay, whatever, and wanting to brush it off. And the irritation was coming from the place of, yeah, I know. And what does that actually mean? How do you actually do that? What does that look like? And so I feel like in the modern day age that we have, in the soundbite age that we have, it's true. Love yourself first. It's true. And how do you do that? And I love, Sarah, that you do this vocal work, this sound healing, because it moves us out of our head and into our body. It cuts through all the thinking about it and analyzing it and am I doing it right? And it just cuts through all of that and it gets your clients into their heart and into their body. And I love what you're saying about the name. I had an experience with a coach a couple of years ago, and that was one of the practices that we were working on as I was learning to love myself and reconnect with my body and be more fastidious with my boundaries and really calling back my own energy. I'm sensitive, I'm empathic, I've been wide open and available for energetically available for everybody, didn't know it. And I started doing this exercise of not very long, just saying my name, just calling my name, Gail. And you feel it vibrating through you. And so this piece about connecting with your body, with your name, with yourself, with your heart, it goes beyond thinking. It goes beyond that mental piece. And we've been taught to live from the neck up. I think I've said that in other episodes. And that's a lot of my work, my own work has been, aligning all of me and helping my clients get more into their heart, get more connected with their soul, get more connected to I'm going to use the words discomfort and desire when we're talking about pain and pleasure. I do think that when we have discomfort, it's information. It's information that we're out of alignment. And when we have a desire, that's on a soul level, that's not necessarily on an ego level. We have a desire for something, to experience something different. And a lot of times we shut that desire down. But that's the love, the truth in our heart calling us forward. And the discomfort is the information telling us, ooh, something's off here. This isn't really aligning with what's true in my heart. So a lot of my work is around all of that. And I'm hoping that we actually have time to do a little exercise to help the viewers get out of their head and a little bit more into their heart and to feel that love vibration.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're certainly going to get there. That's part of the plan, isn't it?
Yes.
One thing I wanted to say though is this idea of loving myself first. That's kind of a redundant statement, really, because we're all one, and therefore there's only one of us in the room. And so loving myself is all I can really do. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're an idiot. That's just stupid. We're all different. We're all separate. We're all this and that and the other thing. I said, sure, we have an illusion of separateness. That's part of what makes this life so fun. And we love the drama that's associated with that separateness. We play with it. We have fun with it. We create conflict with it. We create healing with it. We do all kinds of amazing things with this illusion of separateness. And yet, when we pause and just come back to the truth and get back into our hearts, we recognize that we are all one. And so there really is no you, there is only I. And so, how can I do anything more than love myself? Because if I am loving myself, then I am also loving you by extension. This is something that it sounds philosophical, it sounds esoteric, it maybe sounds a little bit too woo-woo for people, but it is the truth. And the thing is, to the ego mind, that seems like a lie. Okay? The ego mind has a different perspective. This is why it's so important for us to do this work that we're doing of understanding that our ego mind has a place in our physical world to help us navigate it, to help us move around and do things and keep ourselves physically safe. But all of that is just an illusion, because even if this physical body disappears at this instant, the essence of who and what I am continues indefinitely. This little portion of essence called David, which is merged with the essence called Gail and the essence called Scott and the essence called Sarah in the grand scheme of things, is all just one beautiful, amazing essence. And we all just have the opportunity here to live and experience a very finite, short-term physical life experience so that we can contribute to the overall experience of all that is. That's what this is really all about. And so we need to find a way to descend, to quiet the ego mind, to descend down into the body and into the heart and into the soul, where we can then experience that oneness for ourselves. And so I'm going to ask you, Gail, to help us do that right now.
Okay. So you may want to. You can sit. You can stand. If you've been sitting for much of the day, you might want to stand up for this. Just kind of shake off the energy a little bit. Get acquainted with your body, right? Yeah. So if you want, you can close your eyes. Just maybe put your hand on your heart, your hand on your belly. Take a couple of deep breaths in and out. And you may be experiencing something in your life right now. It might be a decision. Maybe it has to do with a relationship, a certain circumstance. And you have some concerns. Or maybe it feels heavy. Maybe there's some conflict there. And just get present to whatever the first thing that comes to your mind. Trust that. That's what's here today, to receive love, to provide an opportunity to step into love. And I invite you to imagine a cord of light extending down from your spine, down your legs, down through your feet, down through the ground into the core of the earth, connecting you with the heart of the earth, and just feeling whatever sensations you're feeling as you connect to the heart of the earth, and drawing up that loving, nurturing energy from the earth back up into your body, back up your legs, back up into your pelvis and your torso, your heart, up into your head. And we're also going to connect with the heart of the cosmos. You can imagine crown opening up to receive that beautiful, loving energy from the heart of the cosmos, just pouring in, pouring down into your head, down through your neck, into your chest, all over your heart, down into your torso, down into your legs, down into your feet. Calling in these loving energies, the highest of the high, as you're connected below and above. And bringing forward in your mind this situation, this conflict, this relationship, this concern. And imagine yourself in your mind, with what you are present with now. Your small inner self is in your mind with this energy, this situation. You may want to greet it, say hello. And as you're connecting in your mind about this situation, you notice a platform. And you, in the situation, walk over to the platform and you realize it's an elevator. And you agree to take a little trip on the elevator. And you push the down button. And you begin to move down from your head and down into your body, and down into your chest. And the elevator stops in your heart. And as you're stepping off of the platform with the situation, just notice the energy here in your heart. The energy of your heart greeting you, surrounding you. And notice the energy of the situation that you've brought to your heart. You may see a color, shapes, texture. Maybe some emotions are coming up. No need to judge anything that you're experiencing. Just notice. Maybe the energy around the circumstance feels a little different from the energy in your heart, and that's okay. Now imagine a pink flame of divine love igniting in your heart. You in this situation, you're standing with this pink flame, standing over it, standing by it, and see the glow of this flame expanding around you both, around you, around the situation that's on your mind today. This pink flame of divine love is unconditional. It's filling up your heart, your chest, your torso, your entire body with peace. It's like a radiant hug from the universe. And share with this loving, peaceful energy what's on your mind. Take a moment to do that now. And when you're complete, ask this flame, this loving energy, your heart, ask, what would love do now? What would love do now? What would love do now? Just breathe, relax. You may want to rub your chest. And receive the answer to your question. What would love do now? I'll be quiet for a moment so you can take that in. And once you've received the response, imagine this energy flowing to you and through you to this situation, this circumstance, this decision. And take a moment to thank this divine love for its message, its support, its clarity. And as you stand within your heart, imagine yourself there in your heart and here in the room, embodying this loving guidance, basking in that energy, emanating from your heart through all the cells of your body, all around you, through all aspects. And just feel that, bask in that. Again, you may want to rub your chest or tap on your heart just to anchor it in. And you can start coming back into this present moment, back into the room. You might want to move your fingers, wiggle your fingers and your toes. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I want to invite the audience, if anything came up and you want to jot some notes, feel free to do that. And I'd love to hear from each of you what you learned from that experience that can support you with whatever came up, whatever came up as your decision or circumstance.
For me, I think it was just be aware that love has many different ways of showing love. One of the things I've said for many years is while you're doing for others, you're holding two people back. And sometimes the most loving thing you can say to somebody is no. Especially somebody that keeps coming and asking you to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. Whether it's a family situation, a work situation, a friend situation, it doesn't really matter what it is. Love, the greatest gift sometimes any of us can receive is a no. Mm-hmm. And that no will come from love. And it's not easy to accept a no as being something that is loving. But I think what I was getting was, yes, be understanding, but excuse the language, don't take me bullshit. Yes. So yeah, it was very much that no can be even more loving than a yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think that what Sarah, I think, is alluding to is the importance of truth. Love and truth go together. One does not exist without the other. So you can share truth from a place of compassion. You don't have to be brutally honest with anybody. Although sometimes people will not hear anything unless it is brutally honest. But you can always, start the escalator if you like. But I think truth and love are very, very tightly coupled. They come together. They are one and the same thing. Absolute truth and absolute love are one and the same thing. And so I think it's important, as Sarah said, to be willing to be honest about what's really going on for you, and to share from a place of compassion if possible. Try to find that compassion no matter what it is you want to share with somebody. Even if you have to be firm, no, you can still be compassionate. And on the other hand, if you are willing to say yes, then be just as enthusiastic about that, because that also comes from a place of love. But the main thing is to be honest and to be truthful to yourself and to everybody around you. So that way, when people hear a yes from you, they'll be more inclined to believe it. They'll be more inclined to say, okay, this person is saying yes because he or she wants to be part of this, wants to do this, not because he or she is trying to please me. That's the importance here. Do you see where we're coming from? And so love would say yes or no, as the case may be, in a truthful, authentic, and compassionate manner.
And you use the term brutal honesty, but also radical or authentic honesty. And I think those are the words we used when we were talking about it. And it's about self-responsibility, being responsible for yourself to be able to speak the truth, be authentic. That if you are indeed able to speak and say yes, it's because you really want to do this. It's not because you're supposed to or you have to or, we all have friends who kind of knock on the door and you hear from them once every 6 months and they say, hey, do you have whatever, the lawnmower, the weed whacker, a cup of sugar? So it's that honesty that you bring to it. And you've alluded to it a number of times, David, and it's authentic. And I think when you get to that point of love, you are truly authentic because you see things from that prism, that perspective of compassion, of love, and it's truthfulness. Thank you. And thank you, Gail, because that was very similar to some of the things that I do, the meditations, but a slightly different slant, I think, just in the visualization.
Yeah. Thank you all. I love the messages coming through because it's I feel like there's it's a little bit different than, what we may have heard growing up or what we've been conditioned to believe what love is, that firm can be compassionate. No can be loving. Like, imagine that, right? And really bringing it back. You're absolutely right, David. Like, bringing it back. Love and truth go hand in hand. I see that Renee. Thank you, Renee, for sharing. David, do you want me to just read this out loud? Do we have time for that? Yeah. So Renee says, what came up for me was love telling me to not let go in this situation. Discernment is a difficult thing. However, my consistent energy with my circumstance has long been to not let go. Many are offering the advice to let go, but they don't know the truth of the situation or the depth and expansiveness of love that's there. I'm going with not letting go. Wow. I'm going with love. Ooh. My situation involves my 8-year-old brother and his well-being. So I'm going with love. Beautiful, Renee. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel like this brings up, we seek out advice from friends and family and even professionals. And what I'm hearing you say, Renee, is like sometimes that gets confusing and we really need to sure, maybe listen to some of the things that are being presented to us, but the answers are in us. The heart knows. The heart knows the truth. The heart knows the answer. And so if you can bring it back in to yourself and connect with your heart, that's part of that discernment process. I've been through a very similar situation, Renee, where it would be really easy to listen to the advice and even kind of go with my own default energy of like, yeah, I'm out of here. And every time I came back to my heart, it was like, there's more here for you. You know, there's more love here. There's more learning here. Uh, does, is it going to be that way forever? I don't know. I keep checking in, right? And so that's part of being loving to yourself. And when you're, and like David said earlier, when you're loving to yourself, it just naturally flows to those around you. So thank you for sharing that.
Right. And I would just like to add, Renee, that without knowing the details of your situation, it's obviously going to be difficult for us to provide any viable guidance. But one thing I can say that seems to work 99% of the time is just follow the truth in your heart. If you trust that truth, then you will know, as Gail just said, what is the right path for you. And obviously, if you are going from a place in your heart, then your path will include some way of loving both your younger brother and also the other people involved in this situation. So I want to thank you for sharing. And I also want to invite you to just be very, very trusting of your natural wisdom that's right down here in your heart.
Suggestion I would make, and I make it a suggestion, is let go of an outcome. It's the outcome that is important to let go of. As David said, we don't know all of it. You do. But let go of an outcome. It's important that the outcome is allowed to be whatever it is. And that
Correct.
is not about trying to control an outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I want to thank you for that process, Gail. You know, I'm sure we all use similar processes. We all use visualizations to help people experience something. And I like the idea of the divine pink flame of love igniting in my heart and just kind of blossoming and growing. And I like the idea of asking that flame, or the source of that flame, what would love do now? I think that was a beautiful metaphor and very, very helpful. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We, we still have some time left. I really love this question. What would love do now? So I think the biggest thing that I think we can give people, obviously not everybody is going to want to go through a meditation or a visualization every time. But what I'm wondering is, how can we help people create a regular practice of coming back to this question? So I would like to just open the floor for suggestions on how our audience can begin to build a practice. There might be 2 or 3 steps that they can follow. So, Scott, I'm going to let you start with that. What would be your recommendation?
This is one of my favorites. And I do this no matter if somebody's starting today for the first time to think about it, or has been doing work for 25 years, and that is grounding themselves into their body, clearing themselves energetically. And how do we do that? Quiet. Most of the time I find that people get up out of bed and then they're right into their phone, the television, the kids, everything is off, and they get caught up in the day, and before they know it, half the day's over, and they haven't even really thought about or given of them to themselves. And I ask my clients to get up 10 minutes early. I'm asking for 10 minutes. They say, 10 minutes? Yeah. You have 10 minutes in the day to give to yourself. And that is getting up and having that quiet time, whether it's sitting in bed or lying in bed, and just listening to those things around you and coming back into your body and understanding where you are with that. And very slowly just walking down your body, starting at your head all the way down to your feet and then back again. And just feel into your body, be there. As Gail did, we went through, you're not as much in your head. You're actually acknowledging your body again. And that's the start for the day. Something as simple as that. Now, for me, I get on the mat, I do yoga, or I do meditation, I do all this stuff. But it started out that same way, especially with Reiki, about doing self Reiki. Very, very quick, very, 2-minute thing. But it's just getting back into your body and acknowledging it. And from there, the day gets better because you're firm, you're grounded, and you have a really strong foundation to start the day with.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add to that or expand on it?
Well, the way you said grounding, of course, it's one of the things I actually do twice a day, to be perfectly honest. But the way that I do that is I actually invite my roots down. I invite my roots to go down into Mother Earth, deep into Mother Earth, anchoring into her. So if you wish to take that down to the heart of Mother Earth, to the crystal cave at her heart, wrap your roots round whatever works for you. But what I also do is I then stretch my arms up like a tree, expanding my branches, reaching up to source, whatever you perceive source to be, creating a two-way energy channel.
Mm-hmm.
I then invite the energy from Mother Earth up through my body and through my heart, up to source. And then from source, bringing the energies down to me, through my heart, down to Mother Earth. And then come back to my heart, expanding the energies to encompass the lives of all those whose lives I touch.
Beautiful.
So it is all about heart.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And I think one thing that I would add to that, first of all, if you can go outside and get out into nature somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
that is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Better yet, if you can find a place, now this might seem controversial for some people, but I'm going to suggest it anyway. If you can find a place in nature where you can be totally naked and vulnerable, surrounded by trees, surrounded by the wildlife that's there, and just go through these exercises. Get your bare feet right on the ground. Feel yourself connected to the earth. And just be there. Let the coldness, tingle you all over. Let the sounds of the forest. Let the sun coming through. If it happens to be raining, even better. Feel that on your body. What you're doing here is you're getting yourself out of your head and into that beautiful place, that body, that temple that you have been gifted with. And when you're in that place, then you can start to get down into your heart and you can start asking this question immediately. What would love do now? Just feel the energy of what would love do now. And that's going to give you some kind of answer. And then when you're ready to just move away from that place and I'll put your clothes back on or whatever, when you are done and you go back into your regular life, I think you're going to find a profound difference with how the day goes compared to how yesterday went. Give it a try, see what happens. Of course, you don't have to get naked, but I strongly encourage it if you have a safe place to do this, because this is where you are saying to the universe, I am being completely vulnerable and I trust you. And that is a powerful, powerful thing. It opens you up to all kinds of amazing gifts that you might not otherwise experience. Gail, what would you like to add to finish this off?
So I'm hearing, and I hope that the viewers are hearing this too, regular practice of connecting with self, connecting with source, clearing your energy, setting yourself up at the beginning of your day is a piece of this. David, I love the getting out in nature and being vulnerable. It's humbling, and it does strengthen that trust in life and your bond with the universe. So that's number one, right? Whatever that practice is for you, commit to that practice, because that's part of we'll go to the gym and we'll watch what we eat. And what are you doing for your heart and your soul, your spirit? What's that practice? So that's one part. And to go back to your original question, David, of like a quick tip, I see that as the foundation. And I'm thinking about my recent experience where I felt a little triggered and a little defensive. And literally, because we were having this conversation not long before that experience, I took a moment and just when you're feeling this way on the quarter of life, take a moment. Just note, when it takes practice to actually notice when this is happening, right? But you can play with this. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. So I noticed I was getting triggered, and I just stepped out of the room, came back, put my hands on my body, tapped on my heart a little bit, took some breaths, and literally said out loud, "What would love do now?" And you know what? I was still in the stuff. And later I was able to just receive what was coming. And it took until the next day to really recognize, okay, this person's scared. They're in pain. Of course they're going to be like this. And it's actually not about me. And how can I be loving in this situation? So literally asking the question and pausing, asking the question, feeling yourself in your body.
Yeah, beautiful. So before I close out, I just like to acknowledge Renee. She left another comment. She said, "Definitely will trust my heart. Thank you, David. Yes, Sarah, letting go of outcomes is so hard for me in general because I want goodness and love to be everywhere. This is always the intention of whatever I do and say. I can't seem to help it. In this case, the outcome is being together or apart from my brother. I can't seem to release the outcome. We must be together. I have been asking what would love do now throughout this year-long situation, which is part of why this topic was a bombshell for me. I only get one answer: do love and don't let go. Worst case scenario is that I commit my life and love to my brother and being present for his well-being and safety in whatever way that I can. I accept this. Between time, I ensure to stay connected to divine love in my service to myself and others." Renee, that sounds absolutely beautiful. I just want to thank you for sharing that. And I think it's a beautiful place for us to wrap up right now. It tells us that there is lots and lots of love in this world, much more for us to bring forth if we choose to. And we can all meditate on this question: what would love do now? And we can all bring forth love in more amazing, magnificent, wonderful ways. So thank you all for being here. I'd like to remind you that you can find the recording of this and every other show on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. Remember, this is Soul Empowerment, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.